Hello, everybody. Welcome to, I guess, our first interview on this channel. My name's Tom. I work with Remax Nova, and I'm joined today by Jonathan Landers, aka the Redheaded Realtor, also with Remax. So today we're going to be talking about kind of military moving within Canada. Jonathan's actually an active member of the CAF right now, stationed in Halifax, born and raised here. I was in the infantry reserves here in Halifax for a couple of years as well, but I just wanted to kind of talk to Jonathan about some things that will be valuable for, I guess, CAF members across the country, but also we're going to talk more specifically about Halifax. So for some members who are being posted to Halifax, what to expect, some certain things that Jonathan's picked up on through his colleagues that he works with, and give you a bit of a better idea for the city and go from there. So Jonathan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of your real estate, maybe your military career, and go from there.
Thank you. Similar to Tom, I was in the reserves for a few years. I joined the reserves in 2014, 2015, until 2019. And then right after university, so I was doing the reserves while at university. Right after university, I switched from the reserves to the reg force. So this June coming would be 8 years total doing that. I started out with the Army, and now I'm in the Navy, posted to CFB Halifax. I chose Navy because I wanted to stay here. I got into real estate in 2021. I've loved doing both. I'm an NCI op for any military people watching. And then I did the ship's team diver course as well, which was super cool. I got into real estate 2021 with Remax now. So balancing the both is a great opportunity, and it's awesome because I've been able to connect the two together. I've assisted a few military folks both in their moves here and away. So it's great, jumping on with Tom and chatting about this today.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So what we're going to kind of start off here, this will be in a couple different parts, but the first part that we're going to talk about is, what to kind of watch out for, what things that you should be thinking about if you're making a move as a military member. Maybe it's the first time, maybe it's the second or third time, you haven't done one in a while. Things to think about, as well as we'll touch briefly on BGRS. So Jonathan, why don't you, in terms of things that you've either picked up yourself or maybe you've heard stories from other military members, why don't you walk us through a little bit of that stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, usually, I always say with military folks or whatnot, it's good to get things lined up far in advance. Now, I know that a lot of times you can't act on anything until you get your posting message in your hand. But for a lot of people, they do know it's coming. So yes, you don't technically have to sign on contractually with a realtor until you get your posting message. But if you know you're getting posted to Halifax, say, for example, it's fall, there's a really good chance I know I'm getting posted this spring based off of my career and where I need to go to next. It's good to just have those loosey-goosey conversations with a realtor in that area, because when you come for your house hunting trip, you want to already somewhat know what you're looking for. The price is there. The last thing you want to do is get out here. I mean, especially Halifax in the past couple of years, you get out here expecting a $300,000 home close to CFB Halifax, like you could have years ago.
Yeah.
You get out here for your house hunting trip and you're like, oh crap, like, whoa, if I would have known this in advance, I would have more so focused my area of search a little bit outside of the city to necessarily fit, what kind of homes you can look at with your salary and or other financials or what have you. Mortgage brokers would speak on that. I'm not going to speak on that, but it's good to kind of just put things into place. And similar to the listing side, if you are moving away, same sort of thing. You want to have those conversations with a realtor. Again, don't have to be on contract to actually get your message, but it's just good to put things together so that when the time does come and you do get your posted message, you're ready to go right away.
Totally. Yeah. So I guess you brought up an interesting point before we got on here, in terms of some tips for maybe folks that are going to be
Yeah.
listing their property before they move.
Yeah, I mean, my number one tip I always tell people, and this actually happened not to me or anything, but a gentleman told me a story when he bought a home like 5-10 years ago. He himself is military, and he went into this home and was viewing it or whatnot, and he saw the posting message on the fridge. And because he was military, he could read that and be like, okay, this guy is like needs to be out of Halifax in 5 to 10 days. And so he was like, I'm gonna lowball this guy. I know he has to sell.
Yeah.
Didn't he get a great deal on the property? Now, mind you, that was 5 or so years ago, before all this competition and everything. But I always say to sellers, if able, not to hide it because you're ashamed or what have you, should be very proud. But I say to any military folk leaving, it's not a bad idea to maybe hide as much of your military things as possible, because if a buyer comes in or a savvy buyer's agent comes in and sees that, especially this time of year, there's a really good chance that you're getting posted, and they know that. And if it's not a competitive home, they'll likely lowball you, knowing that you do have to head out. Now, that isn't for all cases, but that's just on average what I've seen, and through my own experience, I always recommend that, and it has seen rewards.
Yeah, definitely best to protect yourself as best as possible. I mean, why not, right? At least give yourself.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Okay, and then briefly, can you touch on BGRS just for super new members who might be watching this, kind of for
Yeah, so I mean, don't quote me on any of this. I always tell people, no matter what, I'm a big stay in my lane kind of person. So I'll give you as much information as I personally believe, but at the end of the day, no matter what, BGRS is the one that is going to handle your financials and cover certain things. I'm not. You need to call them, get a hold of them, and ask these really important questions, because I could give you advice, but BGRS changes all the time. For example, the commission percentage they pay out in certain areas, I feel like every couple of years it's changing differently. So the last thing I would want is to put what I thought the old commission was down and it be a new one, and now you owe X amount of money. No one wants that. So I would recommend any questions you have with BGRS, you need to call them. It is very important that you get it from them, because again, they're the ones that are going to be dealing with your move, regardless of where you're going or where you're coming from.
Yeah, totally. So again, they're for those who are new to BGRS, it's your kind of support network on the moving side. They cover a lot of fees that you don't think about, or maybe you don't know about. But what Jonathan, I think, is touching on there is they may not cover every little fee, but they're there for you, and they're definitely worth having a conversation with. Whether
it's good to know what fees they are willing to cover prior to
save some money.
Because again, I think over the years the amount they've covered for lawyer fees has changed. Again, don't quote me on it.
Yeah,
but it would suck. 5 years ago you got posted and they covered this amount. You get posted again, say this summer or this spring, sorry, and it's a different amount. Well, if you hadn't checked, you'd be like, why has this changed, right? So it's always good, no matter what, get your ducks in a row and get as much information as possible from the supplier that is really going to be helping you from a moving perspective.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, and just to touch, I guess we're going to move on to the next point now. One thing I forgot to mention, both my contact and Jonathan's contact are going to be in the description down here below. And I've actually got a few more videos coming out either prior to this or in the coming weeks that are going to be covering a bit more in depth of CFB Halifax and CFB Shearwater, which we'll talk about here shortly. But okay, moving into kind of more Halifax specific stuff. Base amenities, comparing to other postings, either stories from you, stories from other folks that you have worked with that may have been posted somewhere else, and they've been like, oh, you know what, I really like that Halifax has this. Maybe, talk about living in the city. Maybe it's certain things you like to do outside that are really close, or sports facilities, the restaurant and bar scene. even the shopping, right? Like talk a bit about what it's like living here as a military member, maybe try to compare it to some other
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it all comes down to what you like. I mean, there are some bases that are in the middle of nowhere, like just woods on woods on woods, right? Army bases, usually. So it all depends what you like. Like I like the Navy because for the most part, obviously there's other little postings you can get, but for the most part, you're on Halifax or you're on the West Coast, right? East or West, right? Bodies of water. I like it. It's a city life. I'm a city guy. I really enjoy living in Halifax. I mean, outside of the military itself, you just got to look at the different parts of Canada. I mean, living out west would be sweet. I've never been there. But living on the East Coast, I love it. I mean, from experience, being at other bases throughout my career with the Army and now Navy, like I've been to Aldershot, Gagetown, Greenwood. So the Nova Scotia one's Gagetown up in New Brunswick. I've been to Petawawa. I've been to Borden. Borden has a pretty nice base. But again, I found through all of them, the most city-like one would be Halifax, for me at least. And I found, when I get off work, I like getting away from the military. So I find Halifax is really good for that, especially a young person or anyone in general, but especially a young person kind of coming in after work. There's so many opportunities to get out of the city, or not out of the city, sorry, but go into the city and see the nightlife, shopping, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's good points all around. Like, especially even some of the Air Force bases, like you are out there. So that's
well, and that's exactly it. Like there are some bases where you're out there, but again, some people love that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's, I mean, we're both real estate agents, so to kind of tie real estate into that, more often than not, if you're in the middle of nowhere, your housing price is very reflective of that. So chances are you can probably get a really nice big home, which again is perfect for some, right? In Halifax right now, it's tricky for a lot of, especially the younger people coming in. It's tricky for them to even find rent, let alone buy a house. So
yeah, that's a good point, everybody. We've got real low vacancy rates on the rental side. So I mean, I was talking to a Navy chief there a couple months ago, and they were getting reached out to directly by people who they were kind of overlooking in terms of needing help to find a place. So that's something.
Oh yeah.
If you're not buying and you're renting, that's almost more of a you need to prepare even more for that.
Well,
but,
it's a big problem it's a big problem for like the young ranks. I don't want to say young people because there's all ages getting into the military, right? But those of like the starting ranks, we'll call it, right? Like the privates, like no hooks, we call it. But you're starting out in your career, right? Everybody started out so, but you're not making a lot of money to start out. Now, obviously, there's room for growth and everything, but you're not making a lot of money when you start out. You get posted to Halifax right after basic, per se. You can stay in tribute, I believe it's called, for very cheap until your course is up. But the second your course is up, you have to go find rent somewhere.
Yeah.
And you're not making a lot of money to begin with. There's a lot of people, unfortunately, right now in the military that are having trouble here in Halifax due to what's going on.
Yeah, high rental price, and there is base housing, but again, worth reaching out to your chain of command or whoever can kind of help you there on the rental side. Realtors, you're not going to really find too many realtors that are in the rental space just because it's a bit of a different space. But going back to some things that Jonathan was briefly touching on, the nice thing, some of the things that have been pointed out to me too, is we do have it's a semi-public military course, Heartland Point, which is on the over by CFB Shearwater. Beautiful, in my opinion. You've got one hole out of 18, or maybe it's a 9-hole. I haven't played it in a couple of years, but only one hole that doesn't actually look, or you can't see the ocean. You got a curling club over by Willow Park, which is kind of the Army base of Halifax.
Where the Shearwater has a pool.
Yeah, Shearwater's got a pool. You got the big facility at Stad for the huge gym there, and Shearwater's got a gym as well. Curling rink, which is kind of cool. And then what else? Anything else? No, I guess we got the Canexes too. But the big thing here is like you've got a big Canex.
They got rid of the gym at Stat, I think.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they got rid of that a couple of years ago. But there's a big gym down at the down at the waterfront, like the CFB Halifax, like down by the ships. There's a big gym there. I mean, it's important to note too, one thing that's picking up again since COVID's, overall in our past, obviously there's still some things out there, but there's a lot of sports teams ramping back up again. I mean, volleyball just had their regionals in Gagetown for both the men and women. There's a lot of options. There's hockey teams. And I mean, you got to remember too, you're getting paid. You're still getting paid while you're going to play these sports. So, join the forces. You can be a professional athlete, getting paid to play.
Yeah, you can go away too in some cases.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I just actually this past end of summer, start of fall, I was in Alberta for softball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they even have military worlds games too, which is
CISM. Yeah.
That's even another thing. But going quickly touching on the shopping too. Obviously, we got a great bar scene in Halifax. We got like something like the most bars per capita in a Canadian city. But we've also got things like IKEA. We got a few Costco's, Bass Pro Shops, which we call Cabela's. All the big box stores. You're in a true city here.
We got IKEA.
I definitely look forward to. Yeah, I love those. Love that IKEA cafeteria too. Okay, well, what we'll do now is kind of move into the military neighborhoods. I know Halifax doesn't really have too many. I was thinking you could touch maybe a bit on the north end, and then in terms of CFB Halifax and Willow Park, and then also Eastern Passage for the.
I was going to say that when I think of military communities here in the HRM, I find Eastern Passage is a very, very, I'd say that's your most dense, for sure. The amount of military per neighborhood is usually Eastern Passage. And the reason for that is it's compared to the HRM, it's certainly a little less pricey.
Yeah.
You can get I've seen a few semis in the past week, past few weeks, mid threes, a little bit 350, 360, which I guess it's what you're talking about if that's expensive or not. But overall, compared to the rest of HRM, that is not anything crazy right now. When it comes to the Halifax side, I find a lot, could be wrong, but I find a lot of military people are out in like the Sackville, further out way.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's not a lot of military folk deep in the south end. Obviously I'm sure there's a few everywhere, but overall I find a lot are out the Sackville way, Hammonds Plains. A lot of military folks, they don't come from city life. They come from parts of Canada where it is quieter, so they like having their land. I know people as far out as, I know a few in Truro that drive every day, but even that, but like Mount Uniacke, out Tantallon way, further out. But I'd say, when you say military personnel in HRM, I think a lot of people will point to Eastern Passage as the main one.
Yeah, and just to kind of touch on that, so Eastern Passage is closest to Shearwater.
It would be on the Dartmouth side out by Shearwater. Yeah.
And if you were to drive, let's say you were actually working at CFB Halifax, you'd actually have to drive by Shearwater. So it's about a 2-minute drive, I'd say, to Shearwater.
By Shearwater?
CFB
Halifax is on the Halifax side. Shearwater's on.
Yeah, but Eastern Passage is past Shearwater.
Oh yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, you'd have to go on the bridge, drive down.
You have to drive past Shearwater, go over the bridge, and then into Halifax. So it is, all those areas that Jonathan just referenced, and again, if you're thinking about moving here, definitely worth reaching out to one of us to get a little bit of a lowdown. But all those areas he just mentioned, except for Truro, are probably no traffic, 25, maybe 30-minute drive downtown. Churro is about an hour,
Oh, yeah.
depending. And that obviously changes with traffic. But like you say,
Yeah, a lot are within the 35, 40-minute radius.
yeah. And that's what you're going to get if you want a little bit more land and a little cheaper.
Big time. Yeah, if you want land in Halifax, you got to get outside the city.
Yeah. And I brought up the North End briefly just because it is the closest neighborhood to both the CFB Halifax and Willow Park. And I actually just did a webinar on some of the neighborhoods around Halifax, and the average price that I pulled from a couple of weeks ago for a house was about $550, but that's obviously going to vary pretty greatly.
Yeah.
You're looking for. Okay. I think that's kind of about it. Other than, one more thing we wanted to just talk about was, I guess posting comparisons in terms of, how a CFB Halifax, Willow Park, and then Shearwater. Do you have anything else to kind of add in terms of things that you've picked up from other members or anything like that in terms of their experiences being there? Like, I know a couple of my buddies like yourself.
I mean, everybody, it's case by case basis, right? Some people love being posted here, some people don't. I think the big thing, like I said at the very start, kind of recircling back to that, is no matter if you're getting posted here or posted away, have your ducks in a line. Get a feel for what to expect when you get out here, and get a feel for what to expect when it comes time for you to list your home. If you are, selling your property and being posted out, just make sure you have your ducks in a line, get everything squared away. Call BGRS. Make sure you know what's covered and what's not. And just, it's really, outside of the military, outside of selling homes or whatnot and all that stuff, work with someone you trust from a real estate perspective, from a lawyer perspective, everything in between. You got about a week-ish to do your house hunting trip. That's a really short period of time to come to a city that you may have never been to before. So it's really good to reach out to a realtor like Tom or I, early, chat with us, get a feel for, hey, based off of a pre-approval, this is what I'm around. Can you please show me the different communities around the base that I'm getting posted to that would fit this appropriately? And then that way, when you get here, we know what we're doing. We're not, you're not getting here with running around, not knowing what's going on. So
cool. All right. Well, everybody, once again, my name's Tom Moore, work with Remax, and Jonathan Landers. Just search Redheaded Realtor. If you like this content, subscribe to the channel. I come up with a new video every week, and he's got a pretty robust Instagram as well. So give him a follow. What's your handle there?
Just type in Redhead Realtor, and if I don't come up, that's an issue on my end.
Yeah. Again, just quick plug again. I've got a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out in terms of some military stuff, but also neighborhood stuff on the channel. So feel free to subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Everybody have a great day.